All right, I have two questions for you. First, what's your giant? What's the one issue, habit, or fear, the biggest, most significant issue in your life that's keeping you from being and doing everything God wants you to be and do? I don't know how long you've been fighting your giant. You may have been in this battle 7 days, 40 weeks, 40 years, maybe even longer. Your addiction started with just one drink, one puff on a cigarette, one moment of experimentation. And now you're hopelessly bound by a habit. You desperately want to be free, but you've given up. You've tried every program, every remedy you can find online. It seems like you'll never win this battle. You've been fighting anxiety and panic attacks for years. You don't know when it's going to pop up. You've given up on it ever changing. Maybe you've been living with low self-esteem for as long as you can remember. You feel like you don't measure up. You see yourself as a failure, as less than. You've resigned yourself to the fact that you'll always feel this way. You'll just have to live with it. The giant is too big. You've been in an unhealthy relationship after unhealthy relationship. Marriages have failed, dating relationships, even friendships. And you're convinced you'll never be able to have a happy, healthy relationship with anyone. That's the giant in your life. Your giant might be shame, guilt, loneliness, doubt, overeating, pornography, lust, worry. Your giant may be a person, a relationship, a marriage issue, a financial situation, a career issue. Everyone faces different giants. Here's the second question. What is it that's keeping you from destroying that giant? What is it that stands between you and victory? Why is that thing still in your life? I don't know what giant you're dealing with, but I've got good news. God has a plan. I have an agenda in this series. I want you to confront and overcome the biggest challenge in your life. With God's help, you can and will destroy the biggest issue. You can take on this giant and win. This doesn't have to last forever. I put an insert in your bulletin with the entire story of David and Goliath. I want you to read it at least once a week. I've heard from some of you who are reading it every day and learning stuff. Way to go. That's awesome. Last week, we made it through the first 16 verses of 1 Samuel chapter 17. Let me kind of back up a bit and review. The Israelite army and the Philistine army were facing off across a big valley. War was imminent, but the Philistine army had a decided advantage. For 40 days, the giant Goliath, their greatest warrior, walked out and issued a challenge to the Israelite army. Goliath was over 9 feet tall. This is actual size, Goliath. He was frightening and intimidating. Anyone standing next to him looked like a puny wimp. Goliath challenged one man, any man, to fight him in a representative battle. If Goliath won, the Philistine army would win. If an Israelite won, the Israelite army would win. Man on man, winner take all. Goliath intimidated King Saul and his entire army. No Israelite was willing to fight. It was 40 days of intimidation and fear. And everyone knows, if you approach a fight full of fear, you're going to lose. Looked like there's no hope. But God had a plan to deliver the Israelites from fear, intimidation, and the enemy. The giant issued his challenge for 40 days. Well, that was going on. Meanwhile, far from the front lines, Jesse said to his son David, "Take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit." That's like all parents, right? It's always a good idea. Don't just send food to your boys. Send food to their boss also, because it might help them get a better assignment. See how your brothers are. Bring back some assurance from them. They're with Saul and all the men of Israel fighting against the Philistines. Jesse was an old man. He was worried. He says, go find out how your brothers are and then hurry back with the news. I just want to know if they're okay. I want to make sure they're not hurt. He was worried because he thought his sons were fighting a fierce battle against the Philistines. Now, it's true they were at the battleground, but his boys weren't fighting. They were running scared. David got sent to the front lines, but David was not going there to fight. He was sent by his father to take snacks to his brothers, to make sure they were all right, and to let them know Dad was concerned. And when you hear that part of the story, the ending's even more unlikely. David was the Old Testament equivalent of the pizza delivery boy. He was just delivering food to the guys who were doing the real work. He wasn't a trained master warrior. He was a shepherd. He was a musician. When's the last time you've been afraid of a musician? Apologies, Pastor Brad. He was the most unlikely hero imaginable. Jesse, the father, had no idea his youngest son was a giant killer. David wasn't a soldier. He was a delivery boy. He was too young to be in the battle. I've got a question for you. What age is the right age to kill a giant? How old is the right age to deliver a nation? For that matter, how old is the right age to be a missionary and tell others about Jesus? How old is the right age to combat the ever-increasing godlessness in our society? How old is the right age to take a stand for Jesus? How old is the right age to make a difference? What's the right age to change the world? What's the right age to lead a church? 16 years ago when I became pastor, you know what the number one criticism of me was? You're too young. My answer was always, well, I'm working on that every day. Now, sadly, it's been a long time since someone said that to me. Now I would hug them and say, you're wonderful. I love you. But I wonder, what's the right age? Is there a magic number? Is there a special birthday that all of a sudden you're old enough? Who determines the right age for a pastor, a missionary, a champion, a giant killer? We need young warriors and young champions in the church today. Those of us who are older, and unfortunately I now include myself in that, have allowed some giants to remain for way too long. It's time. I believe God is preparing children and students to take on giants that we've been unwilling to fight and unable to conquer. It's a priority for me. It's a big part of what I feel God's assignment is for my life and ministry. And I'm firmly convinced it's God's assignment for our church to prepare the next generation of leaders to be giant killers instead of being intimidated by the giants of culture and society. The church is losing ground in America. We can't keep doing what we're doing and expect to gain ground. We need the next generation to rise up and slay some giants. That's why I'm in student ministry. I'm not in charge of anything on Wednesday nights. I'm investing in future champions. That's why in our church, a growing number of our senior adults are joining student and children's ministry staff, because they wisely recognize we need to prepare this generation to fight. I challenge you to join me in helping prepare giant killers. We've got to push hard in this area. I need more of you involved with children and students. Some of you need to change your area of ministry, invest in the future. I'm going to keep asking you for more time, more prayer, more patience, more energy, more money. It matters. Students, listen to me. Don't let someone stop you because you're too young. I believe your generation is going to be the generation that accomplishes the task of taking the gospel to the whole world. If someone tries to tell you you're too young, that you're too young to make a difference, send them to me, or send them to Brother Wilmoth, or to Bob McElroy, or to Becky Roden. Send them to some of us old people who are committed to seeing you win. You ignore the critics. Let us handle the critics. Don't let them become your giants. Come on. Students, you are every bit as qualified as I am to lead people to Jesus, pray for people, share your faith, make a difference, and change the world. You aren't a bunch of delivery boys. You're giant killers. And we believe in you. At First NLR, our older generations are committed to making a way for the next generation to accomplish God's plan. We better be, or there won't be a church 20 years from now. Our leadership team is fully committed to making our children and students our number one priority. If you don't believe in making huge investments in and sacrificing for the next generation, you're going to be absolutely miserable here. But really, that's not any different than your family. Come on, grandparents. You don't demand attention and stuff in your family. If you're a grandparent, who's the number one concern for you? Yeah, your grandchildren. I can't wait. I told my boys, Christmas is done for you. I'm never giving you another dollar. All my money is going to that grandkid. You're the same way, so why shouldn't it be that way at the church? Do you know what the right age is to be a champion and a giant killer? Whatever age you are, when you've learned to depend on God and the power of the Holy Spirit instead of your own ability. Doesn't matter how old you are. It matters how much of God is inside you. The people who are saying you're not old enough probably don't have enough of God in them to trust Him for His unexpected plan and to see the victory. Go fight the battle. Take on the giant. David, too young to fight, set out for the battlefield. At this point, David knew very little about what was happening between the Israelites and the Philistines. He'd never even heard of Goliath. All he knew was that his 3 older brothers were off fighting in the army, and he was taking a field trip to take them some snacks. There's no reason for anyone in the Israelite army to think that day was different than any other day. Goliath was going to come out, issue his challenge, and intimidate. The army of Israel was going to be afraid. Only this day, God had something else in mind. An unexpected moment right around the corner. The battle-hardened veterans were afraid to fight. The experts weren't willing to take on the giant. The people who had been there, done that, weren't willing to go there and do that. So since they weren't willing to take it on, God sent a student, a teenage boy. God decided to use an unlikely hero, a young shepherd boy, to defeat an intimidating giant. You may not feel qualified to tackle your giant. You've been waiting to learn the latest technique or meet an expert or get prayer from a superstar preacher. God doesn't need a star or an expert. God uses unlikely heroes, and God will use you. I think the reason God used David, a simple shepherd boy, was because He wanted to give you confidence that He could use a housewife, a businessman, a maintenance man, a single mom, a retired teacher, a businesswoman, an accountant, a student, a child, a grandparent. You. What qualifies you to defeat a giant and overcome your biggest hurdle has nothing to do with you, and it has everything to do with the God you serve. It's not about your strength, your ability, your power, your knowledge, your experience. It's about God inside you. God is going to work through you to defeat your giant. David's own father didn't see his potential. Jesse sent every one of his sons but David to fight. Jesse didn't believe that David had the potential to defeat an imposing enemy. This wasn't a stranger sizing him up based on his size. This was his father sizing him up based on his potential. David's own dad didn't believe he had what it took to fight. I got a word for you. Listen close. Others may not believe in your ability to fight giants. We spend way too much of our time trying to convince people who aren't willing to fight that we are qualified to fight. Don't worry about it. They don't believe in you, and you're not going to convince them anyway. They don't want to fight the giant. They want to sit on the sidelines and criticize while allowing giants to remain. In some cases, they've become the giant. Don't waste any time on them. Since when did you decide to fight your battles based on the opinions of others? Leave them behind and get out there and face your giant. Early in the morning, David left the flock with the shepherd, loaded up, set out as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other, which is kind of strange to me. It's been 40 days. Everyone knew what was about to happen. They were all going to stand there. Goliath was going to come out and say, "Send me a champion," and they were all going to take off running. They had done the same thing every day for 40 days. But even though it happened 40 days in a row, the whole army was going through the motions of battle and then running away scared and intimidated. They were doing the battle thing, but without the power. What a sad picture. A paralyzed army, powerless because of fear. And every day they had to wonder, when Goliath issued his challenge, is anybody going to fight? Is anybody going to walk out there today? And every day, for 40 days, no champion from the Israelites. Had to be incredibly discouraging. Can you imagine how low their self-esteem was? How powerless they felt? Same giant every day, same frightened army. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and greeted his brothers. As he's talking with his brothers, so he's giving them their snacks, seeing how they are, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. When the Israelites saw the man, they all ran from him in great fear. Now understand, he wasn't fighting them. He's just yelling, and they all ran. As David got to the edge of the Israelite camp, he saw the troops headed out for battle. He heard the war cry. He was so excited, he wanted to watch and see what would happen. And picture the moment. He's talking to his brothers when all of a sudden from across the ravine there's a shout. David's standing there, and suddenly everyone's gone. He's just left standing there holding the Lunchables. And they're all running back to their tents. David didn't know to be afraid and run, so David stood there alone. Remember, David had never seen this giant. He'd never heard his challenge. David looked over the battlefield and he saw this massive giant man covered with armor, cursing God and cursing the army of the Philistines, shouting out threats, and it made David mad. And his thought was, no one talks that way about our God. Why in the world is everyone running away? Remember, this was the 41st day the Israelites had encountered Goliath, but it was the first day for David. He didn't know he was supposed to be afraid. He didn't know he was supposed to be intimidated. He was just ticked off and ready to fight. Do you remember some of the old video games like Centipede or Space Invaders? I know I'm dating myself here. That you used to play on your Atari, on your TV set. Anyway, those games, if you killed the enemies fast enough, they wouldn't multiply. As they came down the screen, though, if you let them live, there became more of them. And they got harder and harder to kill. That's how it is in life. The longer you allow your giant to remain, the more intimidating it becomes. Deal with your giant immediately. The reason why your giant seems intimidating and impossible to overcome is because you've been facing it for so long. It's not really bigger, it just seems bigger. Deal with your giant immediately. Start right now. Start today. Well, I'm going to start my diet next week. I wouldn't want to start it before vacation. Oh, that makes sense. Why would you want to do that? When you go on vacation, gain 12 more pounds. I'm waiting until my schedule isn't so busy. Then I'm going to quit drinking. I've got a big project due at school. There's already enough stress. When things get a little more relaxed, I'll deal with it. I'm tired. I don't have the strength. I'm going to wait till next week. I'll feel better then. Next week, next month, next year becomes next decade. The battle isn't going to get easier because you wait. In fact, it will only get harder. There will never be a better day than today to face your giant. Now, the Israelites had been saying, do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his father's family from taxes. Hello. Tax exempt. King Saul, after we don't know how many days, it had been going on a while, and King Saul decided to devise an incentive plan so someone would fight the giant. Trying to get someone to take the challenge, he promised great wealth and his daughter's hand in marriage. And not only that, but if you killed Goliath, you got to live tax-free forever. This is like if President Trump said, I need a volunteer. We got a big project. Whoever takes on this project and succeeds, here's the deal. You get to marry my kid. You can live in the White House. But not just that. If you defeat the giant, you'll be fabulously wealthy. I'll make you a billionaire and tax-free for the rest of your life. What a deal. That's what the king offered. But not even that was enough. For that much stuff, someone should have already fought the giant, right? But no amount of money was enough to make the soldiers cross the line and fight Goliath. No one volunteered. David heard about the incentive plan. He couldn't believe it. I mean, he's a kid. He's hearing $1 billion. So he started asking around, trying to make sure if it was real. What will be done for the man who kills the Philistine and removes the disgrace from Israel? Am I hearing this right? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? I love the way the Message says it. Here's how it paraphrases it. What's in it for the guy who kills that Philistine and gets rid of this ugly blot on Israel's honor? Who does he think he is? This uncircumcised Philistine taunting the armies of God alive. Saul was trying to motivate the guys with wealth instead of the cause. And here came David with a whole different perspective. This giant was defying the armies of the living God. Goliath was causing the name of God to be diminished. David heard Goliath curse God, and with all the innocence and anger of a young boy, David said, "What in the world? Are you really letting this guy talk that way about our God? We can't let this idiot live another day." You know when you'll decide to face your giant? You will face your giant when you realize the cost of allowing your giant to remain. Now, I know you've thought about how difficult it is to fight and how much it'll cost you to fight, how much effort it will take, how much energy it will take to fight. But have you thought about the cost of letting it stay? How much is that addiction costing you? I'm not talking about just money, but in health, in trust, in relationship with others and with God. How much is that unforgiveness and bitterness costing you? How's that working out for you? How far are you willing to fall into depression? What's it cost you? How much is your out-of-control temper costing you? At work, at home, with your family. What has worry and fear kept you from? What's it costing you? See, every issue in life is a price issue. When you realize how much your giant is costing you, your family, the people you love, and the people around you, when you realize what it costs, that's when you'll decide to fight. Sometimes you have to look beyond right now and say, what's this cost going to be in 10 years if I don't fight this giant? What's it going to be like in 20 years if I haven't fought this giant? If I'm going to let this giant go on the rest of my life, what will that cost me? It's time. Don't take it anymore. It's time to get mad enough and determined enough to fight. This giant has cost you way too much for way too long. It's time to take it on. It's time to fight. It's time to look at your giant and say, you cannot remain. Satan, I won't allow you to continue this in my life. Now, I know what you're thinking. Pastor Rod, that all sounds great. I'm ready to fight. How? Keep reading this story. Over the next 4 weeks, we're going to dig in deep. And we're going to learn from David how to defeat your giant. You can't let your giant remain. Before you fight, you have to decide it's worth it. That the cost of allowing your giant to remain is greater than the cost of fighting that giant. You have to decide it's worth the fight. Fight. You were born to kill giants, not to run from them. Fight. Fight. Not because you have power and ability and experience and might, but because you serve the God of all creation and his power is inside of you. And you fight in his strength and his power. Fight.